You know that feeling of looking at a perfect hero and thinking, wow, how boring. Well, the truth is that we really like heroes who fail, who suffer, who fall flat on their faces, but get up and keep going. Let's understand why. Why are tragic heroes, and sometimes even some anti-heroes, so loved? They end up becoming icons in comics and movies that, let's face it, perfect heroes suck. Those who make the wrong decision never hesitate, never waver, and are always politically correct. It's not a very attractive thing, because we are human, right? Whether we like it or not, we like to see the circus burn sometimes. Superman, for example, was criticized for years and still goes through this today for being too nice in the comics and even in the movies. It was almost like reading and watching a walking encyclopedia about morality and good manners. He is always that example of a person. Even though he is not human, he is much more human than many people out there. I know you like Superman, and I like him too, but sometimes it gets tiring. Until we got to show more of the human Clark Kent, who has doubts about his existence, who feels lonely, and who, even though he is a god, cannot save everyone. Until then, he created the Superman of injustice, that evil guy who is a dictator and kills without thinking anyone who opposes him. It's okay that this idea of Superman from injustice still causes outrage and divides the fans. Many people like this concept, others hated it. But why are the most tragic heroes the ones that work the most? Because they're more like us. We identify with them. Think about Spider-Man. He's the most classic example I could give. Peter Parker is a teenager full of problems. He has his own bills to pay, and most of the time he has no money, insecurities, traumas, has a girlfriend in quotes, and still has to deal with being the friendly neighborhood. He made mistakes, failed to protect the ones he loves, and yet he keeps trying. The only time he tried to give up on everything was when Marvel introduced the One Above All. He is the supreme entity of Marvel, literally the god who created everything in the universe, just like our god here. In this issue, Aunt May was shot and was in the hospital. Peter was exhausted and couldn't take it anymore. He went outside the hospital into an alley and started punching a trash can to vent his anger. Then he showed up. Peter's hands were broken, and he healed them by simply closing his eyes. He reveals himself to be God, but Peter is still suspicious. In the middle of the conversation, Peter says he wants to give up being Spider-Man forever. And then he takes Peter to a beach where there are a lot of people in white, and they were all people he saved as Spider-Man. And so he was able to not give up. My point here is that how many times have we thought about giving up like him? And it's because of these things that we identify so much with Spider-Man. And it's no wonder he's the most beloved of all, and obviously the most tragic. For example, in the last Spider-Man movie, Aunt May died, and he didn't even have time to grieve. He had to save the city. We connect because deep down, everyone has been Peter Parker at some point, wanting to do the right thing, but on the wrong path. Another example is Batman. He may have incredible gadgets, an IQ of 200, advanced technology at his disposal, and an absurd amount of fighting skills. But at the end of the day, he is just a traumatized guy who has never been able to get over the loss of his parents. And to somehow make up for all this, he hunts criminals and fights crime in Gotham. Bruce Wayne's emotional emotions are as great as his skills, and that is what makes people root for him. We identify a lot because he is a normal guy revolted by crime who decided to take action on his own. The only brutal difference between us and him is that he is very rich. Furthermore, flawed heroes bring a sense of realism to stories. It comforts us to think that good doesn't always win cleanly. Think about Tony Stark from the MCU, a genius, billionaire, philanthropist, but also arrogant, selfish, and completely irresponsible at times. He's a guy who creates the problem and then has to fix it. Is it frustrating? Yes, but it's real and really cool. The biggest proof of this is that he's the biggest icon of the MCU, and everyone here knows that he's far from being the politically correct hero. He created Ultron, who caused a catastrophe, and in the end he himself had to go there and stop the BO. But still, everyone loves him so much so that Marvel had to bring the guy back into the universe to be able to lift the MCU up again. Okay, this is another Robert Downey Jr. thing, but you get the idea, and now this is the point I wanted to make the most in this video. Deadpool, the loudmouth mercenary, the most beloved anti-hero of the last decade. His latest film simply earned more than $1 billion from Marvel's coffers. And let's face it, his methods are not at all conventional. And yet we love him. He's a guy who in the first film went around killing everyone. He was a mercenary before becoming Deadpool. He killed anyone for money, and he won everyone over. Okay, Deadpool has a really cool difference, which is his way of breaking the fourth wall and talking directly to us. His heavy jokes are also charming. But he has something unique from the others I've mentioned so far. We have almost nothing in common with him. I'm sure none of you are a mercenary in your city. But we love him. And why? Because we like political incorrectness. That's the point. They teach us that it's not about never making mistakes, but about how we deal with them. This is the case with Wolverine, who carries a lifetime of traumas, but always finds a way to keep fighting, even though he usually drowns his sorrows in a beer. These stories show that we don't have to be perfect to be heroes in our own way. Ultimately, unusual heroes or anti-heroes remind us that strength comes from within. They teach us that failure is part of the journey and that, even when the world falls apart, you can still get back up. That's why we love Spider-Man, Batman, Wolverine, and even anti-hero characters like Deadpool so much. They are a reflection of us. Imperfect, and with a touch of reality. So, who's your favorite imperfect hero? Is it Peter Parker, trying to balance his double life? Or Tony Stark, always walking the line between hero and problem? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content about pop culture and comics. Oncoming Fist Clapperboards, see you next time.